Hi YouTube, this is Joe Calton with Calton Cutlery. You can find me on the web, caltoncutlery.com. Alright, we're still shooting these videos. I think the biggest part of these videos is to let you know that sharpening is easy, okay? All you're doing is rubbing steel on a rock, okay? I mean, if you've got enough use of your hands that you can hold a spatula and scrape or pick an egg up out of a frying pan and flip it, or if you can brush your teeth, or if you can comb your hair without scalping yourself, as long as you've got two hands and you can do normal daily tasks, then you can sharpen a knife. I mean, it's not a black art, it's not overly complicated. And as long as the knife is sharper when you get done with it than it was when you started, then you're doing good at sharpening. That's as simple as it is. Okay, so these videos are mostly just to show you what it is that you're doing. The hardest part about sharpening isn't actually, holding the steel and rubbing it on a stone. It's knowing what to look for, what to feel for, to be able to tell you at what stage of sharpening that you're in. And that's what I'm hoping to show with this fancy camera and microscope and television set. So, wouldn't it be great? Well, let's take a step back. Okay, so I remember when I was a kid, I bought a brand new buck knife. Okay, and in that package, the box, it had the knife, and then it had some instructions. Okay, so of course I open up the instructions and I read all about it. And then when it comes to sharpening, it says, now, I'm just remembering here, so it might not be exactly what it was like, but in the instructions on sharpening it said, you grab your stone, you raise the edge up, or you lay the blade flat on the stone, you raise the spine up until it looks like you're trying to shave a post-it or a postage stamp off the top of the stone, and then you draw the knife towards you from heel to point, and then you go the other side and do the same thing, and the other side, and you do the same thing, and the other side until you do the same thing. And then once the edge is sharp, then you go to the fine stone, and you do the same thing until you get the level of sharpness that you want. I always thought that was kind of confusing. Okay, so I understood, that you're grinding steel off the side of each side of the knife until the two sides came together at a perfect point or plane, either way, and that is sharp. Well, how do you know when you're done? Okay, do you just keep on going until you've got gray hair and you're an old man? Or do you just stop when you're tired? Or do you just keep going until your hands get tired, and then your angles go all wonky, and you start doing more damage than what you were helping it? Wouldn't it be great if there was some sort of a magical thing that would let you know when you are done rubbing that piece of steel on that rock on each side, and then you can just follow step by step. Do step 1, do step 2, do step 3. This is what you look for that tells you when you're done with step 1. This is what you look for when it tells you when you're done with step 2, step 3, and so forth. And then when you're done with that, you have a sharp knife, just like following a recipe in a Betty Crocker cookbook. There is, and I'm about to show you. It's called a burr. Alright? Anytime that you grind steel on one side, once you meet the other side, parts of the steel at the very edge will begin to flake off. Okay? They'll begin to flake off, they'll begin to weaken, and we call that a burr. B-U-R-R is how I spell it. That burr is key. That's what tells you when you're done with each step. Okay? And in the past on my videos, when I've told you to look for a burr, you don't really look for it. I mean, you can see it if you've got a heavy enough burr, but I tell you to feel for it, by taking your blade and, running your fingers along the side of the, well, let's see, this way. And you'll be able to feel for something that's kind of scratchy right there at the very edge. If you're just feeling and it's smooth, then you don't have a burr. Or if you feel it smooth on this side, but you feel something kind of scratchy at the end of the edge on the other side, then you have a burr on this side. then you would grind that side until you feel something kind of scratchy on this side. Okay, well, with the help of the new microscope, I'm going to show you exactly what a burr looks like, and it is some cool stuff, let me tell you. Alright, so let's get you up in here, get the screen up so I can see what you're seeing. Okay, this is edge down. Okay, so we are looking at the knife. Take the knife and then turn it towards you so you're looking right down on the edge. In my last video I was telling you about reflecting light, how you could see light reflecting off dull spots along the edge. Alright, so this is a little slip joint I made, oh I don't know, about a year ago, something like that, out of 1095. I think it's got brass liners and black linen micarta scales, but that part doesn't matter. Alright, what we're looking at right here, this is in the center, is the very edge. Okay, you can kind of see as it fades out, those are your edge bevels. Alright, or in between the center and the side of what you can see are your edge bevels, and then really fuzzy behind that you can kind of sort of make out the blade bevels. But what we're focused on right now is the very edge, the very center of this. Now you see how you've got little fuzzies, little bitty curlicues of metal kind of all over that edge? That is the burr. Okay, so I can't remember which side it was that I ground to get the burr, but that's where the two planes of this edge bevel and this edge bevel met, and then the steel that was ground away got so thin right there at the very edge that it starts flaking off. Okay, and that's what you're feeling for. That's that little bit of scratchy stuff that you feel for on the pads of your fingers. That is the burr. Okay, so now let's let's take it and turn it around, get some other views of it. Okay, here's kind of at a, I don't know about, oh that's beautiful right there. Let's see if I can get it to stop so that I can use a hand to kind of point some things out. Alright, so it looks like I actually sharpened on this side of the blade, because you can see that that steel is kind of folded over. Okay, and that's the burr. Okay, so if you were to take, if we were to use this as our visual, okay, you take these, this is that chainsaw punch that I made, and then it bent the tip over. Okay, well, as that edge comes up and meets, the last little bit of steel right here that is ground so thin that it's just barely hanging on to the rest of the edge, and it's bent over. That's it right there. Alright, let's continue moving it around. Now, you guys probably don't have a fancy microscope like this at home. Now right there, you can see even more that this steel is bent over. Okay? Now you guys don't have this fancy microscope at home, so you won't be able to look and see this on your edges as you're sharpening. But now that you know what it looks like, you should be able to tell, or should be able to make more sense what you're feeling for. Okay? Now this right up in here, this is a piece right here that's actually just about to flake over. Here's a piece that that did come off of the edge, and it's still just barely attached up in here. And there's another one right there. You can see it's just barely attached in a couple of different places. That right there is what I talk about when I say weaken the burr. So first you establish this burr, okay, this ridge of metal that is just barely holding on to the edge. Okay, once you get the burr established, then as you weaken the burr, as you grind a little bit more on each side or sharpen a little bit more on each side, same thing, then that burr will start to kind of flake off a little bit. Come back around. Now we're almost at 90 degrees and we're coming out of focus. Oh, There we go. And I think we're going to go all the way to laying it on its side before I stop again. See if we can kind of follow it. Alright, so actually let's stop right there. Moving this really slow at this magnification is kind of tough. Okay, so what we're seeing right now, we are almost, we're probably, the blade is on the table, so the table would be kind of mostly flat if you thought about it. We're at an angle of about like this. Okay, so this stuff right in here, okay, where it kind of looks like, if you look at the bright part, it kind of looks like there's little pits in the edge. Those aren't actually pits. That's the steel from the other side, or the burr. It's actually laid over. Okay? So it's just another really good view of the burr. You can still see up in here your pieces of steel that are flaking off and are just still barely attached. Now remember, this jaggedy stuff is actually that metal bent over this way. So let's go all the way to flat. Okay, now let's bring you back this way a little bit. Nice and flat. Okay. Okay. So, remember, these scratches right up in here, see how they're at 90 degrees to the edge? Okay, those are our blade bevels, or our blade bevels, where I ground the sides of the knife. Here, where those, from here to here, where those scratches go this way, well, this way instead of this way, those are the scratches left by the stone. Alright? And then right here, you can see the burr, how its parts are flaking off, parts of it are bent over. Let's see if maybe we can kind of turn it a little bit past this and see the underside. Okay, there you can kind of see it there. There, that's a good view. Let's see if we can put it in place. Now this is what you're actually feeling on your fingertips. Okay, so up in here we've got our blade bevels, right? And well, this right here is probably the corner of the spine. This right here is going to be your blade bevels. Right about here is going to be your edge bevels. Maybe right here, okay? And this right here is that piece of metal, that flap of metal, that's bent over. And you can see how far out it goes. Here's another, yeah, you're still in focus there. There's another piece of that steel that has been bent over so much and now it's flaking off. Or right up in there. So this right here is that line of metal that you're feeling for. Now see how we've got an established burr from here to here. Now granted, remember, what we're seeing, this whole picture, or the whole television screen right here, is, oh, I don't know, it might be the width of an 1/8 inch pin, you know, so it's only that small of a section. So it would be like, you know, the width of that magic marker mark right there. You know, so we're looking at just a tiny portion of that edge. But that is what you're feeling for. So now that you know what it looks like, you should be able to tell when you drag that knife across your fingertips, that little bit of scratchy stuff right there at the very edge, that's that burr. Okay, if you're sharpening. Now if you've got, if you just used your knife to cut through a staple, or a piece of wire, you laid a piece of wire here and you hammered on the back and you went through that piece of wire and it bent part of that edge over a little bit, on a soft knife, it would feel about the same way. But since we're sharpening, we're feeling for that along the entire edge. So when you feel, you're going to want to feel that scratchiness from the start of the edge all the way up to the point of the edge. Once you get that burr established, like if you're sharpening on this side, you'll feel that burr on this side. Okay, then you will sharpen on this side, okay, until you feel the burr on this side right here. Once you get that burr established on one side and then move to the other side, now you know for a fact there's no guesswork. I'm going to bring you out for this. Okay, so once you take this is just a Faberware cheap knife I had laying around the shop. Okay, so once you have the burr established, you rub the blade this way and you get the burr on this side. You swap the knife over, rub it this way, you get the burr back on this side. There is no doubt in your mind that both of those edge bevels are meeting. Okay, it can't not meet. If you bring up that burr, then you move the burr to the other side, there is no way that those edge bevels cannot be meeting. Okay, so that is your magic. It tells you when you're done with that step. Okay, so if we were taking this knife and we were going to shape the edge, sorry, the phone's ringing, I have no idea who it is, but telemarketer. Where was I? So you're going to shape the edge on like a coarse stone, right? A lot of these old kitchen knives get beat up, used as can openers, digging in the garden, digging carrots up, all that kind of stuff. So they get dull and beat up really bad. So you'll reshape the edge. That's what establishing the burr on both sides. That's shaping the edge. So you'll shape it on a very coarse stone, okay, just to get through the bulk of that material as fast as you can. An analogy would be, let's say you're building a coffee table, and the top of the table has got, used a chainsaw mill to cut the plank out, right? Well, you've got all them chainsaw cut marks in there. Well, you wouldn't want to attack those chainsaw cuts with 1,000 grit sandpaper. You'd be there until, the wood would rot before you actually got it smooth. Okay, so you would go over the top of it with a 36 grit sandpaper, okay, something to knock the high points down and to get everything shaped. Once the high points are down, you get everything shaped, then you go to 80 grit sandpaper, 120 grit sandpaper, and down until your desired finish. It's the same thing with the knife. Okay, you've got to get that metal removed, get it back, get the edge shaped, get your burr established on one side, get it moved over and established to the other side, and get everything in good shape before you can go to a higher grit. So that's where your Norton crystalline coarse stones, the other one I like is also by Norton, the 220 grit water stone. That's an incredibly aggressive stone. But you have to get that burr on, get the burr on one side, get the burr on the other side. Once you get that burr established on both sides, now you know that you're sharp. All you have to do from that point on is refine your edge to whatever grit that you desire. I like 325. And you can use the burr to tell you when you're done with both of those also. Remove the burr and then you have to be sharp. Just like a recipe in the Betty Crocker cookbook. Anyways, we're at 20 minutes already, so it's amazing how time flies fast. you guys might not tell it, maybe you can hear it in my voice, but this is some super exciting stuff. I mean, I finally got a set of tools here that I'm hoping will be able to show you just plain as day, hey, this is what you're after. This is how easy sharpening is. You look for a couple of key things, do this until this happens, do this until this happens, do this until this happens, and bam, you're sharp. Which means people will be able to sharpen, you know, and get good results. And knives will make their work easier and more pleasurable, and they don't have to fight the knife through their work anymore. And anyways, I'm rambling. Again, this is Joe Calton with Calton Cutlery. You can find me on the web, caltoncutlery.com. And I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you get to sharpening. I hope this helps you sharpen. And I guess we'll see you next time, here in about 10 minutes or so.